Hey, what's up guys? Welcome Nature with Sonic Academy. Today we're talking about kicks, and I want to look particularly at what constitutes a good kick, specifically relating to the amplitude profile or the volume shape of the kick. Let's dive in. We're going to take a look at a few examples. Right, so I've just dragged in a couple of kicks that we're going to look at here quickly. Now, as with most things, this is not 100% of the time that you're going to be looking for this. There are fringe cases where you may want to do something different. If you can make it work, by all means break the rules. But I want to talk about looking at these from a visual standpoint, which one of these you would pick as the best kicks. And then we'll go into a number of reasons why. Now, without even playing these kicks back, I can probably add that one to the maybe list. Let's go with yellow for that. This one, big red no. This one, not so much. This one, for sure. This one probably as well. We'll go with yes for that one. This one, yeah, on the fence about that. This one, big red no. This one, sure, no problem. So the reason I say this is I'm looking for this kind of wedge shape in a kick as far as the shape is concerned. Now, as you may know, a kick is pretty much built into the sort of attack phase and then the body and then potentially the sub at the end or the tail of the kick. When I'm looking at something like this body section and this subtail for me is far too prominent in this section. I want this to kind of roll off a lot more. This one here, same story. I don't like these square shapes, and we're going to get to the reason why I don't like that as well in just a sec. This looks good, nice wedge shape, nice wedge shape, nice wedge shape there. This one far too prominent. And you can see these sections here, you've got these fine little lines indicating high frequency content in the attack phase, but this is pretty much all sub through this entire section, and it's really loud in comparison to the rest of the kick. Now let's play that back. We can just take a listen to what these actually sound like. Now, this one you could actually add to the maybe list as well now that I'm listening to it, simply because, again, I don't like the square shape here, but there is a lot of sort of harmonics and high frequency content in the beginning, which kind of make this a little bit tighter. So it kind of works. These ones definitely not. This one's probably the worst of the bunch, and it's going to cause the most headaches for you when it comes to mixing. So I want to get into the reasons why I say this now. A couple of things to remember. The sub-frequencies, as you should know, take up the most headroom in a track. So using a kick like this in your track means less room for anything else in the track, specifically when it comes down to trying to mix this with the bass line. If you look at this, at this tempo currently, you have probably this amount of space here to put some other content as far as the bass line is concerned. Using a kick like this, the only way that you'd really get this to work as is if this was your entire bass line as well, like using an 808 kick that is tuned to your track and used more as an instrument than a percussive instrument. So bearing that in mind, talking about how much space this takes up, what I'm looking for in a kick is something that I can push to its maximum volume while still leaving the most amount of space to put everything else in. That includes all your other drums, your bass lines, your leads and stuff. I want that kick to have the highest amount of impact with the least amount of space being taken up in the track. And that's really going to assist you in getting a loud mix at the end of the day. So I want to take a look at these two kicks that I have here. I've done these in kick 2. They're both essentially the same kick as far as the pitch is concerned. We're using the same click tone for these. However, the volumes and amp envelopes are different for each of these. So I'll play you this one first. Let's take a look at the second one. So you can see the shape is drastically different to the two of these. So you can hear the difference there. Same components making up the kick, but different amplitudes and different shape of the kick. Now, when it comes to actually fitting this into your track and getting this sort of, squeezing the sort of maximum amount out of this, the most important part of a sound, a percussive sound like the kick drum, is the attack phase. Our brains tend to set the level or the perceived level of something based on that attack. If you have a slow attack, even though something might be a bit louder, it tends to feel softer. In the context of the mix, this is going to cut through. This is going to be a lot harder to fit into the mix. Now, the other reason why I always look for these wedge-shaped kicks like this and not something like this is when it comes down to kind of squeezing the most out of this kick, quite often I want to control the dynamics, and I do that via clipping. We're going to just move these guys over here and bring up a instance of Saturate by Newfangled Audio. You don't need this plugin in particular, but this is the clipper that I use all the time. I'm going to copy this exact same plugin to Kick 2 there. Let's open up the waveform display on this, and I'm just going to increase the size so we can see what's going on here. Let's play the second kickback first. This is the one with the sort of over-exaggerated sub-content. Okay. So we've got some clipping occurring there. I'm doing 3 dBs of clipping. Now listen carefully to these subs. You can hear it's breaking up already. Let's actually start from 0. That's clean. There, 2.6, it's already becoming too saturated for my taste. At 4, it's completely falling apart there already. 1.8 is really where I'd be the most comfortable, in this case, clipping data off the top of this kick. And what it's doing is it's pushing it up above the threshold, it's cutting off the top, and you're left with a louder kick because you have less dynamic range now within that kick. And using a clipper like this actually introduces a little bit of distortion and harmonics to the kick as well. Now let's take a look at the first kick. I'm going to bring this right back down to 0 again. Let's play the kick, and we'll start clipping. Let's go up. Still sounding clean to me. Still sounds okay. I mean, I'm going into quite extreme amounts of clipping here, which I normally wouldn't do as much. Yeah, around about there, it starts breaking up. I could comfortably clip at 4.2, yeah. There's a little bit of distortion occurring there, but not extremely audible, at least not in the sub-frequencies. So in comparison, the two of these, we've been able to push up the softer frequencies of the first kick by a full 2.2 dBs without it falling apart, as opposed to this one, which we could only drive by 1.8 dBs. Now, the reason for this being is that the most audible area where these harmonics are going to be are in the sub-frequencies. And if you look at the waveforms of these two kicks now, let's pull these down just so you can kind of see. Now, when you start clipping here, you're going to be clipping, the threshold is going to come down from the top. And the first things it's going to cut off here are going to be the high to mid frequency content that's in the beginning here. Now, it's far less audible when you start distorting those areas with a clipper. So that's what gets shaved off first. By the time it heads into these parts of the sub here, you're already quite far down the shape of this kick. When you get into this section here, these bigger sub frequencies, that's where you start hearing the distortion. But if you're shaving off up to around this section here, you're not going to have those being affected. This one, by comparison, if you are wanting to shave off the transients, you have to come all the way down to get here, to get those transients up to their maximum value and to get them punchy through the saturation process. But by the time that you hit these transients down here, look at all these sub-frequencies that you are shaving off, and this is where that breakup starts to occur. So you can see now why this sort of wedge shape works so well, especially when you're looking for something that's punchy up front. You can also get away with the kick being a little bit shorter as well. These two are pretty much the same length, but I could shave off more of this one to get it even shorter to kind of almost like a 16th note, which is going to give you so much more space when it comes to mixing your bass elements and other parts of the track into this. Whereas this one, you're just going to end up with a bit of a mess here. Even though we have shaved that off, essentially this part here is taking up so much of the mix that pretty much nothing besides high frequency content like hats and stuff would be able to fit there. Any sort of bass elements would have to fall into this section here by themselves. You wouldn't be able to fit it into the track here. It's also going to cause you a bunch of problems when it comes down to the final mix, compression, mastering, that kind of thing. Let's take a listen to these two now together so we can just get the difference between them now that they have been clipped and pushed up in volume. So let's also just take off the auto gain. So I have auto gain on these to prevent any volume changes. It does affect the dynamics, but not the volume. You'd push it up in the levels in the track itself. But let's take off the auto gain to hear what happens now. Can you hear how much louder this one is now compared to the other one? And the only way you're going to do that is by making sure that this shape conforms to that sort of wedge shape so that you can push it as far as it needs to go. Cool, so that's a wrap for this video. I hope that makes sense to you guys and that you've learned something new here. I will catch you soon here at Sonic Academy. Till then, take care. Cheers.